How do I look as a blonde?
You look amazing. You look like Khaleesi.
You mean Daenerys? Khaleesi's a title.
No. You look like Khaleesi.
No, it's a fucking title.
Nobody out there knows who Daenerys is. Well, no, a very small amount. They know her as Khaleesi.
Khaleesi is not a title. It's a title, not a name.
And as soon as I saw you with the blonde wig, I was like, oh, you're going to make an amazing Khaleesi for Halloween. Twerking dragon Khaleesi Lauren.
So I am Lauren, first of her name, Twerker of Dragons.
Lauren's concussion episode. Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are
the
NeuroNerds.
Yes, that was on time.
I feel pretty good about that.
NeuroNerds.
You know what that sounds like? That almost sounds like the most amazing finishing move. Oh, she's going to hit him with the twerking dragon.
Oh my God.
Like if you were like a Mortal Kombat character.
I always, Mortal Kombat, we've had this discussion, I think. I was always Katana or I was Sindel.
Sindel makes sense. And if you're not Sindel, again, you were Sindel once for Halloween?
No, I've never.
For Halloween, you absolutely have to be Sindel. So today we're talking concussions. I don't know why I got so like dreary.
Yeah, I was like, why do we get so serious?
It's actually like not that concussions are good things, but recovering from concussions is a good thing. So we are the NeuroNerds, and because we both had neurological issues, and we're both big nerds.
Though we've discovered I might be a bigger nerd than Joe.
There's no mites. There is no wiggle room. Lauren is the queen. She's the Khaleesi of all nerdom.
Oh, okay. I'll take that.
I just made that up.
Okay, so I'm Bat Widow and then Khaleesi of nerds.
Yes.
I'll take that.
Oh my gosh, first of your name.
You now must address me as Khaleesi.
Well, so Khaleesi.
Okay, sorry guys, you don't understand. That's actually really cool.
You're also Khaleesi, mother of concussions. So I had
yes.
My neuro injury came from a stroke, high blood pressure induced hemorrhagic stroke 2 years ago. And Lauren's came from a severe concussion that she sustained in a car accident because some dick didn't know how to drive.
Yes, this is actually factual.
Yeah. That was on the report, I think. Some dick didn't know how to drive. So again, it's different but the same. Like we go through a lot of the same issues, cognitively, neurologically, anxiety-wise. Mine was 100% my fault because I just didn't really take care of myself. Never went to the doctor, ate like shit, all that stuff. Lauren, on the other hand, she had zero control over her injury. Zero. So I know that's like super frustrating because once again, some dick didn't know how to drive. But I know there's a lot of people out there and a couple over the last like couple of days that have actually reached out to me with concussions, you know, and if you had a concussion, you had a brain injury, you know?
Yeah. And there's different tiers. There's different schools of thoughts regarding concussions. Because again, just like any other brain injury, there's no exact science for like diagnosing or being able to recognize. There's a laundry list of symptoms. And when I went into the doctor, now again, if you guys remember, I went into the doctor 4 days after my car accident because I thought I had whiplash. Right? It was not my first car accident. And I was like, it's okay. I didn't break a bone this time. So it's all good.
Yeah, Lauren is like Jason Statham.
Oh, God.
You're the driver.
Yeah, right? Interesting enough, I was watching Death Race earlier today. And I was watching like Death Race 3, which is the one with Luke Goss, not Jason Statham.
They made 3 of them?
Yeah. Just so on a side note, Jason Statham was only in the first one.
Also, real quick, they made a second one?
Yes. Yes, very much. And on a side note, apparently, Jason Statham, if you ever hear this, no tea, no shade. But a friend of mine worked on set with him for a movie, and he was one of the fight coordinators. He said Jason Statham's kind of an asshole. Kind of full of it.
I agree with that. You want to know why?
Why?
He was, I think, in the running for Bullseye in Daredevil, the series. Yeah. And like he poo-pooed it. He was like, oh, they don't do like real fight scenes. And I was like, dude, you know what? When you were driving the car over the ramp thing and the car spun and with the bottom wheel, it hit the bomb that was hanging from the crane. You didn't really do that. That was like, it's a movie. You don't actually get punched in the face. You don't
His argument might be that he's not a professional driver. He's a professional fighter.
Is he? When was the last time I saw him in the ring? When was the last time he went toe-to-toe with GSP?
I was like, can we not go there? Because I have a lot of issues with MMA. So.
I like MMA. I'm a big fan of people punching other people in the face.
Yeah, I don't have.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like I was
an angry child. not that I was an angry child. It's just I was like super anxious. So like I had something deep.
So you had
inside.
issues.
I did. I just realized I got into East Coast, West Coast battle thing with Sarah from the Stromies, where I was like, she said something about East Coast, West Coast. And she's like, yeah, Biggie and Pac. And I was like, yeah, it's not much of a battle. Pac is everything. And she was like, well, I think I lean a little bit more towards Biggie. I was like, for shame. But then I was like, you know what? To be honest, I'm more of a DMX guy because I was a very angry child.
And you love Deadpool now.
I do.
Retroactively, that was on purpose.
I see it all comes together like the Marvel Cinematic U.
Oh,
so back to your concussion.
Yes. So back to that laundry list of things. So like anything else. So if you have a concussion, there is no definitive way to really diagnose and or see like the bruise on your brain. There's no way to actually, even if you have a CAT scan or an MRI, the only way that helps you is one, checking you don't have a brain bleed, which was the concern that my doctor had, because I was babbling at one point a few days after my concussion when all the horrible symptoms were manifesting. I was babbling, which is really scary. And then I had numbness on the left side of my tongue and my left pinky. So like my doctor was really concerned it was a brain bleed. But it wasn't, which was like really good. CAT scan scared the shit out of me. I don't know about you.
Oh, you're in a tube.
No,
right?
that's an MRI.
Okay.
The CAT scan, at least the one I had, it like the thing descended over my head, and it was kind of scary. I was like,
did it feel futuristic? Like
a
you were
little
on
bit.
The Star Trek Enterprise?
No, I was more feeling like aliens. And even though that thing was over my head, I was like terrified something was gonna pop out of my stomach, like that kind.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like that was the kind of feel.
You know, we have different fears.
But like my doctor said, the only thing that the only way like you can see what a concussion does to you is if you have a scan of your brain from before. So, and then they can compare the two scans. So unfortunately, because I guess fortunately, because it's not a brain bleed, they don't actually see like anything spilling into the cranial cavity, anything like that. So that's why it's like hard also to like justify it or it's soft tissue damage.
Right.
And so like when you're in a car accident or in a lawsuit, it's kind of hard to prove it, which sucks as well. That's a whole other issue we're not going to get into today.
You're right.
That was years of bullshit.
Stress and frustration.
Stress, bullshit, lawyers, whatever. But so if you've never had a concussion, what's interesting enough is one of the teachers at my dance studio just gave herself a concussion on accident. Ooh. Where she slipped and she caught herself with her face on the floor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so some of the hallmark symptoms, and according to my doctor, I had every hallmark symptom except loss of consciousness. I didn't realize all these were hallmark symptoms of a concussion and of a severe concussion. So you can lose consciousness at time of impact. I didn't.
That's because you're tough.
No, I'm sure that's because I was lucky.
No, I'm pretty sure that like any normal human being
okay.
would have been unconscious. You're not a normal human being.
Okay.
You also have the density of a dying star. So,
well, you can lose consciousness. You don't always lose it, but you can lose consciousness. Amnesia is also part of it. You can lose some time. I did not.
Okay, that's
I
good.
remember
That's good.
the incident. I saw the guy hit my car. Like I was watching him in the rearview mirror hit.
Did you remember like what happened that day, the day before?
Yeah.
Like, and you remember the day following?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Good. Some of it's a little cloudy because I was cloudy, but no, I remember everything. But I do remember the minutes before the impact and the minutes after. So I didn't have amnesia or loss of consciousness. Disorientation is a big one, right? So I remember when I had the accident, I had trouble trying to change lanes. I couldn't remember. I was in the fast lane, so I'm trying to pull over, and I remember I was having issues like, how do I change lanes? And
this is immediately following the impact.
This was immediately the impact.
Shit.
Like I'm trying, like we're on a freeway. The guy hit me. It was stop and go traffic. So we're trying to move over, but like he was moving over before me. And I literally remember I was like, how do I change a lane? And so like some like autonomous motor skills came on. So I remembered to turn on my signal, but I remember it was not smooth. Like I'm a really good driver. So like it was not smooth changing lanes. Like I felt like I was almost like turning the car instead of moving over. So you can have disorientation, and I had work the rest of the day and I was like cloudy. It was not good. Loss of balance. So I remember I had high heels on because I was at work I was a real estate agent at the time. So I was showing a home, and I remember I couldn't actually stand up straight. it was really, I kept like losing my balance in my heels.
Right.
So like I was really headachy and not feeling good when I had clients over, but I could like turn it on and I showed them the house. But I remember like when they would leave, I would like kind of lose my balance. And then at one point there was a second floor and I was trying to show someone upstairs and I literally couldn't climb the stairs. I was like hanging onto the balustrade and I just was like, oh, go ahead and check out the things, guys. I think someone's coming in. Let me go greet them. I was like, I can't climb these damn stairs. I just thought I had whiplash, of course. So disorientation, loss of balance.
No nausea during this?
Not at the time.
Okay.
So you can have nausea. Anytime you hit your head and you throw up, guys, you need to go to the doctor. Head injuries and vomit are very bad signs.
Yes.
So, but I developed headaches. What else? I was able to sleep okay, which was fine. Like I didn't go to sleep till that night.
Yeah, you're not supposed to go to sleep immediately following concussion, right?
Yes and no.
I don't really know.
No. It depends. I've seen conflicting information that's been coming out. Like some doctors adamant about keep them awake. But there's other information that's been coming out as well that says, well, it might not be as harmful. So I think it's case by case and go to a doctor, guys. Right. Like that's
go to a doctor for sure. Definitely don't show a house.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. And then I was playing video games at the same time, which was overstimulation. Yeah. No, I took my laptop to my open house to play Baldur's Gate.
I was
waiting.
I was gonna say I have a very important question. What game were you playing?
Yeah, it was Baldur's Gate. It did keep me calm though, I think, because sometimes that can be overstimulation for your brain because of all the colors and stuff like that. But I think because it had me focus, like I was okay. Like it wasn't it was only like when I was playing the game, waiting for people, I didn't feel sick and I didn't feel gross or like headachy. But it was like when I stopped playing and I had to deal with people, that's when I started feeling icky. Right. So I didn't end up going to the doctor until the third day. So if I got the car accident on Saturday, Monday night, I was teaching a belly dance class and I was feeling okay. And it was a beginner's class. I've taught beginners for years. So like for me to teach those classes, it's very,
it's old hat.
Yeah, it's automatic, right? I'm on cruise control. And so I remember I had a little bit of headache, but I was okay. And then I was doing warm up and I lost central vision.
Oh.
So I don't know if you guys have ever had that. That's kind of really weird. So I have contacts. So at first I thought like something was in my contact because it started in my right eye. And again, I did have the injury on the back of my left side of my head is where I had the impact because I had a hair clip in and that's where I hit first. So I never drive with hair clips anymore in my head. But I remember I started losing the vision in the middle of my right eye. And now I know it's an aura, which is part of an indication of a migraine. And I've never had migraines before that. So I lost it and I was like, okay. I was like, that's weird. There's just like a eye boogie or something on my contact. But then I lost it in both eyes. And that freaked me the fuck out. And so all I could really see was around the edges of my eye. And I'm looking at a mirror teaching.
Oh my God. How
right?
uncomfortable. Did you stop?
Oh, no. I kept teaching. I didn't want to scare my students.
Right.
I did have one of my normal girls there. So I had her kind of lead the warm up as I got a drink of water. And I was like trying to calm down. And then the vision kind of cleared up. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm all right. Then I started feeling a little nauseous. And I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten anything. So I got through class. And then while I was teaching, I was just explaining a basic move or posture. And all of a sudden I started to babble where I lost what I was saying. And I just kind of kept talking for about 30 seconds until I found what I was supposed to say.
Right.
It was terrifying for me because it felt like I had no control. I had no idea what I was saying. And, but to my students who know me, they were just like, "Oh, that's a really weird way to explain it." No, they're just like that. That was a weird way to explain it. My new girls were like, "Oh, that's cool," but I was terrified because I was like, "Oh, that was weird. I've never." And I literally felt like my tongue was like flapping. Like it almost felt like it was flapping in my mouth. Like I had no control of the roll of my tongue. It was just talking. And I was like, I didn't even know that was what babbling really was. My doctor is the one who explained that. And then, so then I was like, okay, this is just kind of weird. I was like, I'm stressed. I'm tired. I have a headache. So then class ended and my girls are with me and they're like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I said, I just don't feel good. I'm going to head home. And my little sis lived nearby the university and I called her and I said, I don't really feel good. And she's like, well, if you want to just come over, you can just, take a nap on the couch or something. And I said, okay. I said, but I'm just going to get something to eat and then probably go home. So I went to Chick-fil-A and I
drove to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, of course. It was on campus, but I drove to Chick-fil-A and I got some chicken tenders and I was like, okay. So I was eating them and I started to feel a little bit better. I was like, okay, but I still felt like sick, like nauseous. And I was like, oh man, I just want to go home. And I thought about calling my little sis and being like, girl, I'm just going to crash on your couch. And I actually passed her house as my headache was getting worse. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go home.
Right. Just make a beeline.
Yeah. So 20 minutes later, I've only once in my life ever screamed in pain. And that's when I had cortisone shots put into my wrist bone. So I'm driving home and I'm having the worst pain in my head I'd ever had in my life. I felt like I had 2 pickaxes boring into my temples and the sides of my head.
And it was both sides. It wasn't just one side.
It was both sides, and it was all this pressure. I started screaming in the car from how much pain I was in, like just shrieking out the pain. I started feeling the numbness in my tongue and my finger, and then and again, compared to Joe, I have a very high tolerance of pain.
Hey, I have a high tolerance of pain. That's why I had such high blood pressure. Because I was always in pain and never did anything about it. It's just the little pains that suck.
So yeah, exactly. So I was, but like I thought about like pulling off and just calling my mom, which I should have done.
You absolutely should. You absolutely should have done that.
Yeah, I should have. So if you guys do this, like literally, I don't care what. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I should have done that. I should have pulled off the side of the road. I should have called my mom. And had her come pick me up. Yeah, I didn't.
Hey, the NeuroNerds do stupid things, so you guys don't have to.
Don't do what we do. Do as we say, not as we do.
Yes.
And so I drove home driving like 85 miles an hour.
Oh my God, you lunatic.
Oh, I was in so much pain.
You were just trying to get home.
And I was also like my hands were like so gripped onto my steering wheel.
Were you having trouble with your motor functions?
No, I was just more like white knuckling it from the pain.
Right.
That was probably the worst, even after everything. And I had migraines regularly after that. That was probably the worst I've ever had. So I finally get home. I am just sobbing as I'm coming out of the car. And I like slam into the house. And I remember I like ran into my mom's room and I literally just threw myself onto her bed. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? Right. And I'm just sobbing. So her and my dad lead me to my room. They turn off the lights. And my dad goes and gets me water and ibuprofen. And he gets me like a cold compress for my head. And my mom's doing pressure points on my hands, which help relieve headaches.
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of helped calm me down, and I was starting to get sleep, and then I had to vomit. So like they left me alone to sleep for a little bit, but I got up and I just threw up. And I hadn't thrown up in years, and I was just like, oh, this is so gross.
It's not
right.
fun.
Vomiting's not fun. So I told my parents were concerned, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the doctor tomorrow. So I went online to Kaiser and I made a same day appointment for the next day. And because I was scared because I was like, oh, I just have a headache, blah, blah, blah.
You know something's wrong.
Yeah, but as soon as I vomited, I was like, head injuries, vomiting, not good. So the next day I went to Kaiser. I have Kaiser. If you don't know what Kaiser is, it's an HMO, hospital, whatever.
Did you have trouble processing information? Or were you pretty close to being, hey, I'm still functional, there's just something wrong? I
was functional because I'm thinking back because I taught a couple classes before that.
Right.
I think I was okay. Like a lot of the processing stuff happened after.
Okay.
So I went to the doctor. I had the best doctor. He actually he was just like that random doctor I got assigned. I ended up changing immediately over to him afterwards as my primary care physician. Awesome. Because my primary doctor I cannot stand. I couldn't stand. I was like, oh my God, she's such a bitch.
Hey, I went through like 3 of them.
Yeah. So immediately he had me starting to describe what I went through. And I didn't even think concussion. I was just like, no, I hit my head. I said I had a car accident. So I don't know if I hurt my back and this is just pain from the back, blah, blah, blah. So as I'm going through and describing everything and telling him, he's the one who says, oh, that's babbling. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know what that was. And he let me finish talking and he goes, okay. So he says, you have almost every single symptom of a severe concussion. And I literally was like, what's that? Right. And so he described it and I was like, okay, well, what are my options? Like, what can I do? Like, I don't think there's surgery.
Yeah. Do I take a pill? What's going on?
And so, and he was very good about explaining everything. He might be one of those doctors where people would say, oh, he talks too much. Oh, hell no. I love this doctor. He takes copious notes and he explains everything.
That's good. He does his job. Oh. Yeah.
He cares.
Novel.
And so he described the options because then he's like, well, you could get a CAT scan. He's like, I don't like to overprescribe radiation because radiation is not good for your body.
No.
Right?
No.
So I remember I asked him, I'm like, well, what's the difference if I get a CAT scan or not? And he goes, that's a good question to ask. And he's like, some of your symptoms are worrisome. He's like, you could have a very minor brain bleed. And he's like, it could already be resolved or you could have a minor continual bleed right now.
Which is not good.
Right. And he's like, so the CAT scan would tell us if you had the bleed or not. And I was like, okay. I said, but would that change my my treatment or anything like that? He says, not really. He's like, the only real treatment for big brain injuries like this is observation or cutting a hole in your head.
Yes.
That's basically all we get, guys, as brain injury survivors, because there really is.
Hey, I got option B.
I know he got option B. I got option A. So like you said, regardless if I had a minor brain bleed or just a, generic concussion, it's observation. Right. It's wait and see, treat the symptoms, because there is no actual other things they can do. And drilling a hole in your head is to actually relieve the pressure. So when you have a major hemorrhagic stroke or a major brain bleed, they have to relieve the pressure because it can kill you.
Yes.
Because what's happening when you have a concussion, the way it was described, and I think about it now, is you have a bruise. So like your brain has hit your skull, and it's just like if you get punched in the arm or, get hit with something and then you're like, ow, it'll swell a little bit and it's nice and purple and discolored because it's bleeding internally.
Right.
But it will go back, right? So that's a concussion. But when you have a bleed, it's where there's like an actual puncture, like nothing stabbed you, but something exploded. And liquid is spewing from your brain into your cranial cavity. The only difference is when you swell within the brain, from like a bruise or a concussion, it'll reabsorb and kind of shrink back down. When you're actually bleeding into your cranial cavity, there's a very delicate and precise pressure in your brain. So that your brain floats in the fluid in there. But as the blood continues to fill it, it increases the pressure in the cavity, and there's nowhere for it to go. And so that's when you can have very serious consequences.
Yes. Not fun. Our brain's so delicate. It's like a souffle.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the most powerful things on the face of the planet. It's a supercomputer that all supercomputers aspire to be like, but it's one of the most delicate things on the face of the planet.
It's one of the most powerful things on the face of the planet, like Lauren L. Manzano. Boom!
So for me, my doctor told me, like, because I asked him, like, well, what do I do?
Right.
And he, he's like, you need to rest. And I told him, like, I'm a pole dancer. I teach pole. Like, this is my career.
I do everything.
So but he was a really good, like, honest doctor, because I said, so what am I supposed to do? And he's like, well, I've only known you for 15 minutes. He's like, but he's like, I would love to tell you, take 4 to 6 weeks off and don't do anything. But I'm realistic.
Right.
He goes, can you take 1 week off and do absolutely nothing?
Which is awesome.
Yeah. He's like, just do nothing for a week and rest and sleep.
Were you able to do that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Because,
that's good.
4 to 6 weeks, you're like, fuck that shit.
Right.
No one can do that.
Right.
But then he's like, just do 1 week. I was like, that's reasonable.
Yeah. He's like, I've only known you 15 minutes. I already know you're a lunatic. I know too much about you.
Right.
1 week.
So, and then as like I'm preparing to like leave, he's like, oh yeah, try not to think too much.
Yeah.
And I laughed and I was like, oh yeah, sure. He goes, no, I'm serious. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, try not to think too much. And I was like,
and now I'm thinking about that.
Yeah. I was like, that's stupid. He goes, no. He's like,
you know what he did? He's literally like, oh, here, quick, hold this grenade. Don't think about it. Just hold this grenade.
But I remember, guys, I was like, okay, this is really weird. They prescribed me sumatriptan, which is Imitrex, which helps if you have migraines. I've never had migraines before, but that was a new fun adventure.
It sucks.
Right? So migraines can last for hours.
Yeah.
And they're painful and they're awful. And you feel like I want to jam.
It's what you want to wish on your worst enemy.
Yeah. Migraines are not fun. And so what something like Imitrex can do, this got prescribed to me after I started developing them, is as soon as you get the indication that you're going to have a migraine. So usually if you're going to have a migraine, you have an aura, in a visual aura, not a sensory aura. There's usually some sort of symptom that you get. For me, I get a visual squiggly in my eye.
Oh, that's your red flag.
Yeah, that's my red flag. That tells me, and as soon as it starts and goes away, it lasts for about a minute where I can't see through that. And then it tells me, bitch, you got 20 minutes.
Let's go.
It's like literally like that. It's like, oh, you got 20 minutes before this hits. And so what happens is as soon as I get that aura, I take the Imitrex. And so what that does is you feel really gross and sick for about an hour. I get vertigo. I have a dull aching headache. And I just feel like shit, but only for an hour.
Right. And
instead
that's
of
better.
8.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
instead
better
of
than
8.
your entire day.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, I take Imitrex and Excedrin or Imitrex and ibuprofen.
Oh, do you can mix it too?
Yeah, you can mix it too. Because the Imitrex, I believe what it does is it dilates the capillaries.
Okay.
So no, dilate? Yeah, the one that opens them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dilate.
Yeah.
So it sends the blood flow because the migraine is the compression of the capillaries. So it completely opens them. So
don't sound like good drugs,
right? So that was fun. I remember I couldn't. So you all know I'm a nerd. So I read and I watch YouTube videos.
Oh, and you couldn't read?
No, I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I couldn't.
How'd you pass the time?
Watching daytime TV.
Oh,
because it was so mindless.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, what is that? What is that as a condemnation on our TV, our daytime TV? Like, right, you have a brain injury, that won't hurt. I remember
it's nothing. You can't even think.
I remember for like a month, like I would open up my emails for my clients and stuff, and I would like open my laptop and I would just have to close it because it was so much.
Was it was it the information? Was it the light?
It was both.
Okay.
It was like the light. I wasn't so light sensitive as I was. It was like information overload.
All right. What about motion? Were you motion sensitive?
No, not so much. I went back to teaching pole the next week.
What is wrong with you?
I was fine. I asked my doctor. I said, okay, if I'm going to be inverting, blah, blah. He says, try to take a couple weeks before you start doing that again. He's like, realistically.
And you took a week.
No. He said, take a week, don't do anything. He's like, slow your body back into it, which I did. Because I said, is it me going upside down going to make any difference? He says, no, the damage is already done. He says, unless you fall on your head or hit your head, you're not going to make the damage worse.
Don't do that.
No, I've never fallen. I've never hit.
Ever.
I think I've hit my head once in pole. in the 7 years I've done it.
I think I've hit my head once. I think
that I can remember.
Yeah, you should dance for sure with a helmet.
We're gonna do that once.
Yeah, no, we are. That's the YouTube.
Sign up for Patreon, guys.
Yeah, that's the YouTube content.
But yeah, no, it was really hard. And then, but you know, just like anything else, your physical symptoms tend to heal within about 3 months. So I had 24-hour headaches. I would wake up with a headache, go to sleep with a headache. You know, and it's just like that dull, aching headache that's all over your brain, all over your head. And then I would start getting like what I call the pickaxe headaches, where like just randomly, and it would feel like you got slammed on the side of the head. And it's like, you know, in different parts of your head. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm down for a couple hours. And it wasn't a migraine. It was just like getting slammed in the head. But so I think when I was doing a lot of research, like within the first 7 days, like your brain chemistry has recalibrated. 7 days. I know. So usually about 7 days, your brain chemistry is back. So once you like have a concussion, everything's out of whack, right? So the actual chemicals or the hormones are back to like a homeostasic period. And then, you know, your swelling reduces, your headaches dissipate. A lot of your physical issues you might have had, like bruising or like bumps on the brain, on the head or something, those reduce in about 3 months. Like usually your physical stuff tends to dissipate. And then not everyone gets it, but if you do get post-concussion syndrome, like moi, those start to manifest usually about 5 to 6 months after your injury.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a shock because you're like, hey, I'm better. No,
you're not. So that's all the psychological issues. Because even though physically your brain is better, your brain chemistry is more or less back to what it was, stuff like that. Psychologically, your brain has to heal.
God, you had a brain injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like literally your brain is still trying to process the trauma of the impact and stuff like that. And that can manifest in many different ways. So if you have post-concussion syndrome, yours might not be like someone else's. Again, it's another laundry list of things. Because again, the science and study of brains is still in its extreme of infancy, right? And so on top of that, everyone has their own individual brain chemistry and body chemistry. So then you react differently to someone else. So like Joe would react differently than my brain would, right? Because we have two different brains, two different brain chemistries, male versus female, different ages, different predilections towards whatever we have in our family and our genetics. So you can develop suicidal thoughts, which I didn't, which is good. God. No, and I've met quite a few dancers that I know that have had they didn't realize they had concussions. They just banged their head, and then 4 or 5 months later, they go through about a month of suicidal thoughts, and then it went away, and they're like, "Oh, that was weird." And then I pointed out, I'm like, "You probably had a concussion
for sure."
So suicidal thoughts can be one of them. That's probably one of the scarier ones. You can develop extreme mood swings.
I was
That's
gonna
what
say,
I had.
I was gonna say mood swings seems
Yeah.
like that would be.
I
a
had mood
common thing.
swings. You can develop depression, or if you've had depression, get it again. I didn't develop it. Anxiety, which I've never had in my life and which I still deal with now, which is not fun. Panic attacks and anxiety attacks, two different things, but
Yeah.
I developed both.
Yay.
And I didn't know what it was.
Oh, you overachiever.
Oh God. And I didn't know what those things were, guys. And like, I knew what it was when other people had them. Like I was like, oh, that's an anxiety attack.
Right.
Oh, you have anxiety.
It's one thing to like see it in somebody else and nothing to actually feel it and
Yeah.
experience
Cause you
it.
feel like you're going insane.
Yes.
And like literally my friend who's a psychologist literally was like, you should probably get a prescription for Valium. And she, and I
did
didn't.
you
No.
end up doing that?
No.
Okay.
So you can get anxiety, depression, inability to handle stress. So if you have a large stress threshold, that can dissipate immediately. That was what happened to me. Is like before I used to have like 10 clients for real estate and I was doing all these things all at once, multitasking, which is not good.
Horrible thing.
Which is not good to begin
for brain
with.
injuries. Like just for somebody without a brain injury, terrible.
Yeah, it's not good for you to begin with. But I used to be able to handle all my clients, no big issue. By the time I ended up leaving real estate a year after my concussion, I couldn't handle one or more clients.
You still did it for another year though.
Oh, it was hard. It was a struggle.
Laura Manzano, you warrior princess.
Oh God, no! I really wish I quit sooner. But so you have a diminished ability to handle stress. You could have, like I said, migraines. You can have some psychotic episodes. Like,
yeah, but that's just you. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Wait, how was your creative side? Because I know you're a writer.
So it was a struggle. Because I couldn't handle stress.
Okay.
So that's stressful, right? And then you get mounted stress from anxiety from not being able to do something. Or if you were doing something, it becomes this vicious cycle, like a pile.
Oh.
So it wasn't the refuge I had wanted or envisioned it to be, but it was still there. I really did a lot of reading. Like I read tons of fan fiction.
What was it difficult to process the information?
No.
Okay, that's good.
So that was fine for me. Once like the actual headaches cleared away of being able to read, like that was fine. Like I didn't lose an ability to retain information, but I remember like trying to write or trying to dance was really hard. I was teaching throughout this entire thing too. So that was hard. And then the one that I've had where I haven't seen before, like I didn't see it in like the generic things that you can get in post-concussion. But again, everyone can get random things.
Right. We're all different.
Which was my forgetting words.
Oh,
yeah. Which I still struggle with, but I'm getting over it. Like I'm working on it because now it's just kind of cool.
Hey, like the rest of us, we're all a work in progress.
Exactly. So, that's where you kind of start documenting like what's going on so that you can talk to someone about it. Right. So when I had to go see a therapist because my lawyer made me go, they were trying to prove how crazy I was. No,
the therapist now sees a therapist.
No, she was actually really, really helpful. Like it was the most expensive therapy I've ever gone to because I had to give some of the settlement to them. It sucked for 1 hour. But when I look back on it, what she gave me was invaluable.
Priceless.
Right? And so what I would leave with you guys, anyone experiencing brain injuries or concussions, is reframing. I know we've talked about that before, which is, and also like your trauma is your trauma is your trauma.
Absolutely.
Right. There's no like award on who wins the worst trauma,
right.
guys.
You can't compare.
No.
You just can't.
So whatever you're going through, you have to reframe it, or you have to like, it's valid. And then from there, how do you use that and or work with it? Right? You don't want to just say, how do you get rid of it? You can't. How do you get over it? You can't. Like that's not something that's not helpful. So for me, it had to do, especially with my loss of words and language, that was really traumatic for me. And like sometimes if I'm really struggling with it, it'll still make me upset. But what you have to do is like, okay, so like find your new normal. We always talk about what's the new normal, right? And it sucks that there might have to be a new normal, but you can't always use who you were pre-injury as a yardstick. Right. So if that's who you keep looking back to, you will never get back to that person, whether that was a good or bad example to come up to, right? There's just the new version, the leveled up, the next version.
You're right.
Right. I am right.
Yeah.
But
you're
right.
the You're Lauren 2.0.
Right. Remember when we talked about oddish, right? You're going past oddish, right? You're going to gloom and then vile plume.
Yeah. You know what's awesome about that? You're odd. You're not oddish. You're just
I'm just
odd.
odd.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and now you're just like an evolved version
I'm
of
gloom.
odd you.
I am gloom.
You're something.
Gloom, gloom.
You're definitely
I am gloom, but I am Groot. I am gloom. But what happens is like you don't go backwards. It's like I think we said on one episode with Joe is with the Lord of the Rings with the hobbits, right? At the end of the third book and the third movie, they're going back to Hobbiton and they're saying like they can't go back. Right.
Right. Yeah, we're past that.
You're changed by your experiences. You can't go back to who you were before.
No. We've grown.
Yeah. So for me, it was a struggle on really accepting and reframing that my new normal was I forget words. And so for me, what that helped though was take the stress and the pressure off, where if there was a situation and I couldn't remember the word, it was okay because that's now normal.
Right.
So if I did remember the word, that was like, woohoo, hooray.
Right. And so you didn't, because you tell me all the time, stop beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Did you? And so you celebrate the good.
Yes.
If you're going to beat yourself up that one time, celebrate the other 9 times you did amazingly.
And the other thing is you have to communicate with people. So, you don't need to tell every Joe Schmo or person out there that you're talking to. But like if it's someone you regularly either work with in business, family, friends, whatever, like I would tell them like, hey, sometimes I can't remember words. Don't rush me. And I'd be like, I might do some weird things where I'm trying to remember. So, because what'll happen is like my brain would start to speed up where I, like on a little mouse wheel,
little hamster wheel.
And it would get out of control and I couldn't think. So what I would have to do is literally like, I'm showing it to Joe right now.
Yeah.
It's like, I would have to close my eyes. I would bring my hands up right by my face. And like, so I'm a kinesthetic learner. Or a tactile learner. So touching, like having to do things. So I remember I would like bring my fingers to my thumbs and kind of like tap them out and close my eyes and breathe and see if I could remember the word. And usually if I did that, it calmed me down enough that a word would pop up.
That's an awesome process for you. You know, that's.
But I would have to tell the person because it might look weird if I was just randomly talking with someone and all of a sudden I just like, right? They might think I had an actual stroke. Like that. So you have to communicate your needs or whatever you're using for coping or recovery. So if you have something very unique to yourself, communicate with your friends, communicate with your family, even in business. So let's say you have a client, and this isn't like your first client meeting, but like if it's like when I used to be an event planner, like I might tell them like, hey, I'm in recovery from a brain injury on certain things. Again, only if this doesn't violate any sort of like HIPAA or whatever bylaws you have at work, but just communicate and be like, oh, if I do like little weird things,
just give me a second.
But sometimes, like if it was business, I would actually not do that. I would just move on and either change the sentence or use a word that didn't quite work it. And I would just be like, oh, that's not exactly the word I want. But
you adapt to the situation.
So, again, I would say if you have very unique coping mechanisms, use that with friends and family and people you deal with on a daily basis that you feel comfortable. And then find your like stranger coping mechanisms or business coping mechanisms. So like for me, I wouldn't let myself dwell. I would just move on.
Right.
Because I was like, I can't.
Yeah. And that's one thing we don't want to dwell.
No. And not everyone needs to know.
Right.
Like not everyone is of privilege to know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Friends unless you're Joe and you're wearing shirts and buttons that say
I have a hidden neurological
right that
issue,
invites questions,
or I almost died. My favorite shirt ever. I'm like a cartoon character. I wear the same thing all the time. Also, like for people, like if we're telling you this, the worst thing that you could possibly say is, "Oh, I forget things too." Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Come on.
Yeah, if you guys are caretakers or supporters in the community, don't just tell someone like, oh yeah, I forget words sometimes too.
Oh man, my therapist did that.
Yeah, because that trivializes and it's very diminutive to what we're going through because you're just forgetting a word because you're having a brain fart.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
We do it not because everybody does that. We do it because something happened to our brains.
Yeah, like what was described to me from one of my linguistic students, and I think I've mentioned this before, is like the neural pathways that I had, like the neurons, like they're either damaged or dead.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I can get back to some of these words in English. The benefit is I speak multiple languages. So thanks to neuroplasticity, Like I'm building new bridges and new pathways to that knowledge.
Oh, you genius.
I know, right? Because our brains are amazing.
They are.
So if you don't speak another language, I encourage you to speak other languages. Elvish counts. So does Dothraki.
Dothraki, does that?
It might, because it is a pretty developed language. Elvish is because it has a fully grammatical developed language.
2019.
Klingon.
It's the year of growing.
Learn some Klingon, guys.
Joe's gonna learn some Espanol.
Mandalorian is not unacceptable. It is not an actual developed script.
A word?
I know. But yeah, so, you just got to find what helps, especially if you have a concussion. Sometimes when you're in the concussion camp, it doesn't sound as quote unquote serious as someone who's had a stroke.
Nah, man, it's absolutely like, look, like I said, if it's a brain injury, you can't compare.
No,
you absolutely can't compare. Well, it's minor. It's a serious, like it's all serious. It's the brain.
Yes.
It's like saying I just had a minor heart procedure.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. So like, I understand that, well, it's a minor brain injury. No. All brain injuries are major. Your concussion was a major concussion.
Yeah, it was like, I always tell people, like, my concussion was just short of a French fry of a Happy Meal. It was just short of a brain bleed.
Right.
Which I'm very grateful I didn't have. But like, so if you're in the concussion camp like me, this is where we've talked about it before, where you could have imposter syndrome, right? Where you're sitting in this community and sometimes you're just like, man, I don't have it that bad. And I just had a concussion and, blah, blah, blah. But that goes back to imposter syndrome. This is also our brains and the negative voices in our head, right? Where we're questioning, like, are we really in the community? Yes, you are.
Every single one of you.
I will wave the flag for concussion, team concussion over here. Okay. And Joe will like hold my hand and it'll be beautiful. We'll all be on unicorns. And I am mother of unicorns now.
Oh my God. Please tell me that there's a unicorn on the flag. A unicorn with a bandage on its head.
You know that the unicorn is the state animal of Scotland, right?
Is it?
Yeah. That's their official animal.
That's awesome, because those are my people. They like beer. No, so yeah, all brain injuries, all of them are different. They're like snowflakes. Every single one of them. So, major, minor, they're all major, and you can't compare. You can do a little bit of perspective. Like, yes. I do that all the time.
Perspective is very important.
Like, I take a step back and I'm like, man, anytime I'm struggling, I'm like, man, I don't think I could get past today. And I'm like, man, there are other people who are doing significantly worse and doing more. So like, why am I complaining? I'm not saying that like I have nothing to complain about. I'm just saying that if they're going to be able to do it, why can't I do it? It's just shifting perspective. I'm not diminishing what's going on with me, but I'm just looking for a little bit of inspiration and motivation through other people, which is awesome.
That's a conversation for another episode. But no, so seriously, again, your experience of a concussion might be completely different than mine, which is okay. Like, again, you might just have a headache. You just might be nauseous. Every head injury is not a concussion. Let's be clear. You can have a bonk on the head and you're fine. That's not a concussion. But, if you have a significant, bonk on the head and you're displaying any, you could look it up on the Mayo Clinic, the generic, typical symptoms of a concussion. If you tick a couple of those boxes off, do yourself a favor, go to the doctor.
Let's just find out.
Yeah, just have them tell you you're fine.
Yeah, let's find out. Let's not be those people.
I was hoping the doctor would tell me I was fine, and I wasn't.
Hey, 2019, it's the year for self-care, self-love.
Yes.
Like we're going to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
And so we're also going to take care of each other, because we are in the most beautiful, amazing, caring, giving community I've ever known.
Yes.
Like, really, it's crazy. Like,
definitely.
Every single one of us want to help one another out,
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me think we're all secretly evil. No.
Well, I won't tell you what my character alignment is.
So this has been awesome. Because there are a lot of concussion survivors out there. There are a lot of people who just don't know much about the concussions, and you've given us a lot of insight. This has been awesome. We've gotten to know a lot about Lauren and how amazing she is.
Oh God. Oh, and the fact that post-concussion syndrome, I forgot to mention, can last for years. There's no
end date.
No, it's usually it can be from 6 months to 5 years.
Wow.
So I'm on year 3.
Yay. So, you're getting, but is it getting less severe?
Yeah, the anxiety is less severe, and by relaxing on the word and the vocab, that's getting better.
That's beautiful, though.
But yeah, the anxiety is still there.
Yeah,
and that's something where it's like, well, you're just getting older, you're getting anxiety. I'm like, no. I
No.
went 27, 28 years without anxiety. So
See that's no, it's just no.
no.
It's so different.
Yep.
Because we had brain injuries.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, and Lauren, you are awesome. I adore you. You're seriously one of my favorite people. I am
Aw.
so happy that you survived.
Yeah, me too.
You know, because to be honest, it could have been so much worse.
Yes.
It
could have been a lot worse.
The deficits could have been severe, you know? And the fact that like also you're kind of a stubborn goon.
Yes.
Your doctor had to tell you, yeah, take 6 weeks off. Well, I've known you 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Try a week.
You know what my doctor does now is I just email him and I request things. He's like, do you want both? And I'm like, yes. He's a great doctor I have. And like literally from all my injuries, I'll be like, so I've had cortisone in this wrist and I've done PT. It's getting really bad again. You know, I have a high tolerance for pain. What can I do?
Give
and
me the goods.
He's literally like, do you want both? Because I was like, can I have one or the other? And he's like, you can have both. What do you want?
He's like, take him with a bottle of whiskey.
So like right now I have referrals currently in hand in my email that I can go straight for PT or straight for cortisone or do one and then the other.
Yeah, you should probably do one and then the other.
Yes.
Because you need you need it all. You need to be healthy. You need to be healthy.
Yes.
You know, and again, 2019.
Yep.
It's the year to be healthy.
Exactly.
Right. And
yeah.
I'm just very, very happy, Lauren. I'm smiling.
Aw,
my
me
lips
too.
hurt because I have this my lips are like super chapped. Should I put Vaseline on them? I don't know. That just sounds gross.
And on that lovely note, guys, lovely note.
But I think you know what we should do, because you're super amazing everything. You should make a concussion flag.
I should. It's gonna have dragons and unicorns and Dungeons and Dragons on it.
Not just dragons, twerking dragons.
Oh my god.
So as always, the NeuroNerds, we are here to help. I would like to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Avid, for supporting our podcast and being as amazing as they are. I'd like to give a huge thanks to Lauren for being as awesome as she is and sharing her concussion story, because I got to tell you, like, I think personally, sharing our stories helps everybody. It helps us grow. It helps us during our recovery. And it definitely helps others out there know that they're not alone. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to share. It's very difficult to like open up and be like, hey, this has broken me.
Yeah, it's hard to get to that place. But by practicing, by talking to people who are willing to listen.
Absolutely.
Then we can practice to start telling people who are unwilling to listen as we take over the world.
Damn right. But I really appreciate you sharing. It means the world to me, and I know it means the world to everybody out there. You can follow me at Joso Rocks everywhere. Follow Lauren at Lauren L. Manzano.
And I would like to
places.
Yes. And a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. You know who you are. We adore and love you.
We love you guys. And as part of the NeuroNerd feature, hashtag the NeuroNerds give back. We give a portion of our Patreon support to a individual or an organization.
And again, thanks again to everyone listening today.
We appreciate all you guys. And again, the NeuroNerds, we are here to help. Follow us at the NeuroNerds, neuronerds.com, at the NeuroNerds on Instagram, because we are Insta nerds.
And we're the NeuroNerds in space. I'm going to ride a dragon into space now.
That's working dragon. And on that note, the NeuroNerds out.